Hi, I'm Chris Rabb with Free Speech TV here in Washington, D.C. at the Take Back the American Dream Conference. And I'm with Joe Cummerford of the National Priorities Project. And I thank you. You're the Executive Director of the National Priorities Project.
I am. Thanks, Chris. I am. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, what is it that you do in your organization, and why are you here today?
So National Priorities Project is a nonpartisan federal budget research organization. And what we do is we make the federal budget meaningful for folks in local communities. So we look at this big, many, many thousands of lines of data, and we tell people what the local impact is of federal spending and federal revenue decisions so that they can have a voice in the decision-making process.
Wow, so you make it nice and simple and pretty for those of us who who are not budget geeks and don't understand all the acronyms and all of how the sausage is made.
Absolutely.
So tell me, give me one kind of point that people should really know about how the federal budget impacts their local community. Give me like an example, if you can, of something that's meaningful to someone who doesn't know this stuff.
Sure. Well, our federal taxes go into this big pot of money called the federal fund. That's our federal income taxes. And then the Congress, of course, with the administration, prioritizes the spending of this. So, for example, last year, when you paid federal income tax, 27.4 cents of every single one of your federal income tax dollars went to support military spending. Right? That's so nearly 1/3. And if you add interest on the national debt, it actually exceeds 1/3. So more than 1/3 of your dollar went there. So I actually think that's just an interesting piece of information for taxpayers to know. Do we think that's a good way of spending our money? Do we want it prioritized elsewhere? And in this piece of the budget pie called discretionary spending, which is where military sits, 58% of all discretionary spending in 2012 is projected to be military. I think that's interesting to me because that's part of the money that Congress has discretion over. And so other things are really slated to be squeezed a little in terms of social programs. So, housing, education, other things, that also folks in local communities are concerned about are, feeling the pinch in these economic times. So I feel like, giving people tools to figure out where the heck their tax dollar goes and how it's prioritized and what's the process in Congress is just part of a healthy democracy.
So you actually help people process the information to make their own decisions and their own priorities. If they think the military spending is too high, then they can advocate in their own ways. Now, are you associated with advocacy organizations? Because it sounds like you're a research, nonpartisan entity, right?
Sure. Many, many different kinds of organizations use us, from classroom teachers trying to help their students get a handle on how to be civically engaged, to college teachers, to certainly grassroots groups across the country. Sometimes issue-specific grassroots groups, so folks who care about healthcare or the environment. Sometimes more sort of social organizing groups. It'll depend. Labor unions. Everybody wants to figure out, especially now when the stakes are so high, how the heck we got where we are. So how do we get to this place where we're talking about debt and deficit, and what can we do as a nation? And one thing that we know is that too few of us have an opportunity to really engage at a time when every voice is needed in the democratic process. So we just try to get folks feeling like they both have the information they need and they have the ability to get in it, with their elected officials and really make their voices heard.
Wow. So I have two questions related to that. Do you have pretty pictures? Because I'm a visual learner. Can I go to your website and see like cool maps and diagrams and stuff that, does all of this stuff? Because that's how I process. What kind of great stuff do you have on your site?
We've got actually a pretty cool thing. We've got this thing where you can actually put in your income tax and see where your money went in 2010 in a visualization.
Didn't the White House do something like that?
They did it for the first time. Good for them. They did that. We do it a little differently because we just do your federal income tax, so we don't do the payroll tax, because that actually tells a very different story when you just pull out that income tax. So you can do that. You can also go to a site that we helped create called buildabetterbudget.org, Build a Better Budget, and actually you can build a federal budget that looks like what you want to spend and what you want to make. And then you can send those priorities to Congress.
Wow. See, I like that kind of
You're
stuff.
like
That's
Build a
great.
Better Budget.
Okay. All right. The second question is, where does how do you get the data? Is it all public information? You sneak around, do investigative reporting, see there's a secret slush fund. How does that work?
You know, the data is available to everyone. The issue is, right, that it's just complicated. So we have the privilege of having a great, incredibly smart staff to crack open this budget. And it's thousands and thousands of lines of data. So our folks have trained over the years how to analyze it and how to make it real. One of the things that's true about MPP's numbers is that we really scrutinize them. We adjust them for inflation. They're the real numbers, the constant dollars. So the story they tell is the real story. It's not an inflated story. So everybody can have these numbers. In a democratic process, everybody should. The issue is that it's not so easy to understand, and sometimes the numbers come out in different ways. So they need folks to take them in and clean them up and make them meaningful.
Okay, so are there any politicians, any elected officials who reference you, who use you, that you know who's impacted? Because, a lot of times, particularly when they're in candidate mode, they just pull numbers from anywhere.
Oh, sure. A range of politicians have used us. I would say, to be honest, more on the Democratic progressive side. But sure, the Obama campaign called MPP for numbers when I was first at MPP. So all the way through to Raul Grijalva or Barbara Lee have referenced us. So they're, great folks in Congress.
Now, do you work with like the CBO, Congressional Budget Office, and do you have relationships with them, since you're not an advocacy organization, you're not a political entity? They are public resources. They are on the. So, what kind of relationships do you have with folks who are essentially similar to you, who are in public office as administrators and appointed officials?
Sure. I have to say that CBO, Congressional Research Service, OMB, they're all really terrific at getting numbers, and actually they also are really terrific at. They're terrific at getting us numbers, right, so that we can crack it open and look at it and localize it, get it to the lowest level possible. Because this data, in many times, it's actually available at the county level, this kind of spending data. Sometimes school district for education, true.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So they're terrific. And they also recognize, and in fact, I have to say, it's a hallmark of this administration, they recognize that they want to be better. They care about transparency. They believe that transparency is a key to democratic engagement. And so they see us as a popularizer. They see us as an educational outlet. They see us as people, who are out on the road, talking to folks in local communities, helping their numbers get out.
So for folks who don't yet have access to you, where can they go online and play with all the wonderful gadgets and gizmos and information?
Nationalpriorities.org. National Priorities.
Thank you very much. This was great. As a statistics geek, I really appreciate this.
I appreciate your time. Thank you.
This is Chris Rabb with Free Speech TV.